Hey, welcome back. Part 2 in a 3-part series looking at the Axminster AC2606B bandsaw. In this episode, we're going to build the thing and get it calibrated ready for use. That sounds good? Stick around. So job 1 is we need to build the stand. Now this is quite a substantial, although it's only pressed steel, there's quite a lot of weight in this frame. It's going to be a sturdy beast, this. So first job, find yourself a set of legs. Find yourself one of these short cross pieces, line it up and bolt it together. Inside this packet you get a couple of Allen keys and you get a wrench. Oh sorry, you get 3 Allen keys, a wrench and a small clip that we'll put on one side for later use. These are the nuts and bolts that you're looking for. They have a Allen key on one side and obviously that fits in the spanner on the other side. Just get building. So that's the frame pretty much built. What I'll say about this, it's pretty good quality. It's all very sturdy, it's very strong. There's no sharp edges at all. And it's all powder coated in this rather charming light grey paint. What I've done, I've left everything loose at this moment. I've just used finger tighteners to tighten this together. And that's just to get it all positioned. And that looks good now. So now I'm just going to go back in and tighten up all these nuts and bolts. Marvellous. So that's all tightened up. What I would say is the Allen key that came with this is, well, rubbish. I'm not sure we can see, but it's just rounded over the edges on the end of the Allen key. So that probably survived about 50% of the frame job before it stripped. And I wasn't really cranking down pressure-wise. So I've come in with my sturdy old Festool and just finished the job. So you probably want to watch out for that. Make sure you've got something else to use, and this is a Hex 5 that I've used on the Festool. This one was okay. This little 13mm spanner did a good job, but the Allen key is probably fit for one thing into the bin. The frame built, we've then got these little rubber feet to go on. Don't think it's complicated on these. I'll see whether that feels stable on a flat surface. My workbench looks good. So no real dramas with the building of the stand, just that one problem with the Allen key that stripped on me halfway through. But I had the Festool on hand, so that was okay. So my next job is I want to get this onto the base. Now there was no way I was going to be able to deadlift this directly onto the stand. It's just way too heavy. In an ideal world, you'll ask your neighbour or a friend to come round to lift it onto the overall platform. But given the fact I'm currently in COVID lockdown, then that's not going to happen. What I decided to do instead is tip the device backwards and walk it forward slowly. So that front edge there is just overhanging the framework. And then I can use the leverage of the machine itself to just tip it into position so it's on top of the frame. Once it's on there, it's just a matter of moving that forward till it sits on the frame, and then 4 bolts firmly secure that to the frame, and at that point, jobs are good and we can get on with the next stage. So with this on its stand, the next thing I want to do is actually change the blade. This is slightly different than the instructions. The instructions would now talk about putting all the various gubbins on here, the table and what have you. But I want to change the blade. Now the reason I want to change the blade is this is obviously the factory fitted blade. It's okay, it's a 1/2 inch blade, it's about 4 teeth per inch. This isn't really the highest quality blade that you're going to get, so while I'm at this stage I may as well drop on the new blade, see how we set it up, see how we configure the blade guides, both top set and bottom set, and it's easier for you to see and easier to get out if I don't put the table on. So now we'll do the blade. We open the 2 doors, this door here and this door here at the bottom, and inside here you can see the wheels, the top wheel and the bottom wheel. Now these wheels are aluminium. I believe the ones in the trade series are actually cast iron, but these are aluminium and they're balanced. I can see the weights here in the back. Now this black knob that came with the kit, we saw it earlier on, just simply slots into a hole on the top. So I can just release the tension on this blade. And what's happening is this wheel is slowly, ever so slowly dropping down, and that's just releasing the tension on. So I want to go this all the way down, so this has got no tension on at all. So that blade has now got all the tension off. So now I want to take off this bottom blade guard. There's a simple Allen key at the front. Sadly, that's exactly the same size as the one that we stripped while we were building the frame. So I'll just take that out of the way. This knob here at the front alters the height of this blade guard. So I'll loosen that off. I'm just going to lower that down so it's out of the way. Here, you can see it dropping down, and that's probably good enough there. And now I can simply bring this blade forward off that top wheel, off the bottom wheel, should just almost fall off, and then out of this blade guide, and then a bit awkward here at the top, but that's it, that's my belt now removed. I'm going to drop on my general purpose blade. Now this is the Axminster Premium Bandsaw blade, and this one's got variable pitch on it, and if I can show you the blade here, you can see the teeth, you can see quite a coarse cut here on these teeth, but then again you've got quite a fine cut here, and it alternates fine cut, coarse cut, fine cut, coarse cut. Now the idea of this blade, it will give me quite a good cut on thicker stock, and those wider angle teeth will remove the debris from the cut, and the final teeth will finesse that cut and give me a really nice finish. And this has got all the promise of being a really high quality blade. So we just need to unroll this carefully, and I just want to check that when it's inserted my teeth are in the right direction. And can you see here? You can see all my teeth are pointing down, and that's in the right direction. If you unfold this blade and the teeth are pointing upwards, you've got to turn it inside out, and we'll look at that a little bit later on. Fitting the blade is basically the reverse of taking the blade off. I just want to back these bottom blade guards off out of the way, like so. That's just so I don't foul the blade. And I'm going to move this top one back as well a little bit, like so. Do the same with the top ones, get those out of the way. I find it's easier to put this onto the top wheel first of all, holding it steady with one hand because you don't want it to fall off the back, and just put that into that groove there. Once that's in that groove, make sure you're still on, and just slot this front of the blade into this blade guard. This is a bit awkward. There you go, that's in. Make sure again it's not falling off the back, it's got a tendency to. And now I can just simply hook it over to this back wheel, like so. And there you go, that blade is now on. So the blade fitted, I just now want to tension this up again. That's no harder than turning the wheel in the opposite direction. I don't want too much tension on this blade, but I want some tension on this blade. Now what I want to do is to just make sure that this is tracking okay. Here there's a small window, and I can see through that window, and I can see this blade. And here on the back is the tracking knob. And what's happening is I'm turning this knob, the wheel is slanting a little bit. That's obviously exaggerated. And if I start to adjust my wheel, and this is my blade, you can see my blade will move in relation to the center point of that wheel. Now what the instructions guide here is I get this blade sitting right on the middle of that tyre. So let's do that. Now I'm not sure where to see this, but hopefully you can just see the edge of the blade here and the edge of the tyre here. And if I rotate that and carefully turn the handle, can you see this blade is coming over in this direction? So if I take the blade there, it's now right at the edge of the tyre. Can you see that? And if I turn the wheel the other way, that tracks back again towards the back edge. And what you're looking for is for this blade to be round about centre point, which is about there, if you can see that. And once you're happy with that, just lock this mechanism down at the back. I now have to turn my attention to the tension. At the moment that's ways too loose, and I know that because I can push this blade here and deflect it without much effort, so it's banging on the back of the assembly. So this knob at the top, I'm just going to tighten that up now, I'm just going to turn this again as I tension it. And I'm going to check it there. Wait for it to stop, check it there. And what I'm looking for is enough tension on this where I can't deflect the blade easily to that back edge. And that looks good to me now. So I can push my finger on there. My nail bends ever so slightly, and just as my finger turns white on that fingertip, that's deflected by about 5mm or so, if that. And I've got to push really hard, and it physically hurts my nail to push that against the edge. Everything should be running smoothly. Everything's nice and tight, and that's it. My tension's right. Now I just want to retract my tracking, and that has moved out as I've tensioned up. So now I'm just going to adjust this back again, back to the centre, which is there. I'll lock that down, and then just retract my tension. And good, that's good. Everything's looking nice inside there. What I now want to do is to start to look at these bush assemblies. So we'll do the top one first of all while we're here and we can see it, and then we'll come down and we'll look at this bottom one. Now the blade guards on this particular device are made of ceramic. You'll see on some of the other ones and the trade machines, these are actually a bearing, steel bearing that does this job. But the ceramic ones, if you set the thing up, work okay. And you can see these two at the front, and you can also see this one at the back. Now the idea of these is these stop the blade tracking left and right in use, and if you don't have this set correctly, this can track too far, and that's going to give you wobbly lines in your work. This one here at the back stops the blade pushing backwards as your wood is pushing into the blade, and again if you don't have that one, it makes your blade unstable. Now what you want to do with these is adjust them front to back first of all, so the guides are coming in just behind the set of the blade. If you had them set too far forward, it will run down the set of the blade, and that will squash the teeth in and stop the thing cutting over time. So you want to set these about 1mm back from the back of the tooth, and if you do that, you're going to be okay. To adjust that, there's another Allen key just inside here that loosens off. Now this entire assembly can slide in and out. I'm just going to set these so they're just back from the front edge of that tooth by about that millimetre, 1 to 2 millimetres behind the back part of the tooth. And once I get that, I'm going to lock it into place. I can now loosen the two porcelain ones off and bring them in. I'm just going to push them straight onto the blade, and I'm just checking to make sure that they do indeed track 1mm behind that position on the blades. Once I get to that point, I now want to take these away ever so slightly from that blade. Now the easiest way to get these to the correct position is just come in with a feeler gauge or a piece of card off the packing of the blade is good for this. So just slide the cardboard up between the blade and the porcelain guide and lightly hold that guide against that cardboard. Take the cardboard out, and now you've got the perfect gap there. Do the same on this one. Card in. Lightly rest that against the blade without deviation, so you're not going to try to bend the blade here. Tighten that down. Now what you want to do, you just want to see whether you can still rotate this without any noise. And if you look down inside here, you can see the small gap between the blade and those porcelain stops. So just by rotating this slowly, you can see whether that blade is hitting anything. And just there, on that point, it's hitting this back guard, and that goes on till about there, and then the blade moves away again. So I'm going to bring this in to it's just touching there, and I'm going to undo this bearing here. I'm just going to back that out and repeat that setting. Remove the cardboard. Now I'm just going to try again. Yep, perfect. So they're not going to catch on this in normal use. It's going to stop that deviation left to right, and they're set that 1 to 2 millimetres back from the back side of the tooth, so they're not going to flatten off this tooth. The next thing I do is bring my attention to this back disc here. Another Allen key on the side, undo that, and then this can move forward. Now you want to set this one as close as you can to that blade as well, without it touching. Bit harder to do, but this one can be anywhere from 2 to 5 millimeters. That's okay. And what you're looking to do is that deviation on the back of the blade. Now to check this one, just take your fingernail and just put it just underneath the guard, in between one of the teeth, and just push backwards. And without it hurting your finger, just getting on that border of pain, that should now be banging against that disc, and it is, and that's perfect. Tighten that down and just spin the wheel and check. Hear that? What I can hear is the whisper of the wheels. That's perfectly set, and that's what we're looking for. So now I want to come down to this bottom set, and these are basically the same. I have 2 porcelain blocks here, and I have a porcelain wheel at the back. Now I also first of all want to set these so they're round about that 1 to 2 millimeters back from the back edge of the tooth. On this one there's an Allen key here. No clever wheels or anything. There's an Allen key here that you just simply loosen off, and this allows this to slide backwards and forwards. So I'm going to set this so it's round about at 2 millimeter back. This one's a little bit easier because you can see it. However, if you're doing this with the table on and the guard on, it's quite tricky. So you can see why you may want to think just about doing that. Okay, and now to bring these 2 blocks in, I'm going to come back in with my feeler gauge and just trap that against the blade without bending the blade, and now I can tighten that in place. Take it out. Now I can repeat the other side. Take that out, and again I want to rotate this, and straight away I can see that this one here is pressing against the blade. So I'm going to back this one out at that high point, coming again with my feeler gauge, lightly bring that up, lock it down, take out the gauge, try again. Okay, and again that's whisper quiet, and that's what I'm looking for. I can now come in with this back disc, and again I want that to be about that 3 to 5 millimeters away, which is going to be about there, and lock it down, and now I can make sure that everything is tracking beautifully. And once you've got everything locked down, just give yourself a final spin to make sure nothing's catching anywhere. I can now come back in with the bottom blade guard and just put this back into place. You know, you can probably see here there's a hole in that blade guard. Now that gives you access to these various things we've just adjusted. So we move the table on, you can still come in and do that. Now obviously it's a bit more tricky with the table on. You do actually do some calibration of the table. Once the table's set, it's not hard to take it on and off and reposition it pretty quickly. So you've got a choice. You can either rummage around underneath the table, which is what I tend to do. It's not that hard. I just did it in this way for clarity of the camera, because with the table on you can't see anything. So talking about the table, I want to put the table on. So the table sits on top of here. So take off these nuts and bolts and just put them somewhere where they're close to hand, because you're going to need those in a second. Now just before I drop the table top on, there's 2 things I want to do. If you look here, there's a slot cut into the tabletop, and that's obviously to allow the blade to slot in as you're changing the blade, or in our case putting the table on. And at the very end of that, on the outside edge, there's a nut. You just want to pull that out. It's only finger tight. It looks like that, and you just want to pull that out. What that's doing in use is just preventing these 2 halves of the tabletop where that slot is from moving up and down. So it's pretty important, so don't lose it. It's not a packing screw, it's part of the operation. You're going to need that. Then you want to just loosen off these 2 knobs here and just put this into a slightly angled position. Tighten that down and just get these knobs out of the way. Just lift up and twist around out of the way and just get rid of those for a second. Now it's this plate here that's going to sit on the table. Now if you look at those bolts that you've just taken off, you can clearly see that one is longer than the other. And on this plate here, this is thinner than this back portion. So obviously the longer bolts go through the thicker piece at the back, and the shorter bolts go through the thinner pieces at the front. And it's just worthwhile recognising that they are 2 different length bolts. It's not clear in the instructions, and it's quite easy to not realise that when you take them off. Now I'm going to slide the tabletop on from this direction, from the side of the teeth. and that allows me to put the tabletop on and swivel it round into position. I can then use the bolts that I've got to hand here to quickly just secure that tabletop down using these two positioning bolts here. Now that's going to be the shorter of the two bolts that we looked at, and the longer ones go at the back here. So I'll do that, you watch. This tabletop is pretty heavy, and it also comes packed with grease. Now what I've done, I've wiped the grease off this because I don't want to get covered in grease, and that's pretty much where it needs to be. So I can now come in with one of my back bolts and just secure that loosely into position. Good. Holding the table, come on to the side, get the next bolt, straighten that up and secure that one in place. And just loosely line that up so it's flush with the red part. Now we're going to come back and adjust this again shortly, but for now that's good enough. And now I want to lock this down into position. Now making sure this is tight, but I'm not going mad at this moment in time. I just want it to be secured because I want to now adjust the table to make sure it's square in all directions with the blade. Then just spin the wheel one more time. I just want to check that we didn't inadvertently knock anything out as we were tightening up, and that all looks pretty good to me. I can now come in with the disc, make sure it's reasonably lined up with the blade, and just drop that into place. The next thing I want to do, I want to make sure that the tabletop is square to the blade, and I want to make sure it's square in this direction, but I also want to make sure it's square in this direction at the back as well. Don't be tempted to use your wooden square for this one. Woodworking squares are only guaranteed to be accurate on this plane. They're not actually accurate on this plane here, where an engineering square is accurate both in this plane and in this plane. Now the first thing to do before you actually get into this check, just make sure you put the nut back in that secures the two tables together, and just make sure that's locked down nicely. Now the first job is I want to check this table in relationship to the back of the blade. So coming with my engineering square, sliding that up, I can see that, oh, I am lucky. That is pretty much bang on. The next thing I want to check is squareness in the table in this direction. So again, I'm going to come in with my square and just check that, and you can see that's out by quite a lot, and hopefully you can see that gap there. On the back here you can see this bolt. That's the thing that sets its squareness in this direction, and it's a simple mechanism. That bolt just references on here. So if I were to look at my squareness, well, that bolt needs to go up a little bit. So now my table is square in this direction and it's square in this direction, so I'm happy with that. So I think we're doing reasonably well. We've got the blade tensioned, we've got the blade tracking, we've got the blade guides front and back, top and bottom tracking well. We know we've got the right tension on it, and we know that our table is square, and that wasn't too hard, to be honest with you. Now the next thing I want to do is to check the fence. The fence just simply clips on and locks into position, and there's a guide here on the fence that shows you what you're set at. First thing I want to do is to check whether the blade is zeroed or not. So I've got this small window on the blade here, and inside there there's a little red line, and obviously this red line you put across the measurement you want on the table. You've got to look straight down on this, you don't want parallax error. So I'm just going to bring that into the 0 point. Now there's no positive locks on this, so it really is your eye on that position, and that's actually not bad. I can just feel the blade catching on the guard with that on the 0 point, so that's good enough for me. What I do worry about more than that though, because once again I'll probably never ever use this scale, I'll probably come in with some sort of measuring device. I do want to make sure that the fence is square to this blade. This is something where like the band buddy comes into play. It's a piece of aluminium, it's got two rare earth magnets on here and a small cutout. And all you're going to do with this is put it on your blade, and your teeth are going to rest into that groove that we saw. You now loose your blade off and bring it up so it's just touching any part of that buddy. As you can see now that my fence is not in line with that buddy guide. So my fence wants to come out more like this in this direction. On this particular fence we have some limited adjustment. 1, 2, 3, 4 Allen keys. Now those Allen keys are strapped down to some square bar that sits inside these T-tracks, and there's a little bit of movement inside there. However, there's not a lot of movement inside there. But it's imperative that we get this square, and straight away I don't believe there's enough movement in this fence for those adjustments, but we'll give it a go and see. To bring you into the problem, you can see the problem we've got. This gap here is way bigger than this gap here, so that's not square to that blade. Now just loosen this off. Don't come too far out with these, because they will come out of the black clamp underneath, and then that's a bit of a pain to get back in again, like that. And you can see I've got some movement, but I've probably not got quite enough without forcing it. So what I'm going to do instead, tighten this back down again. Now what I have found with these is once they come out like that, you can't actually get them back in. They're not very long and they don't quite reach down to that metal clamp. So I take a bradawl, something that's nice, sharp and pointy, and just work it underneath the black clamp, and now I can lock that back into place again. Okay. So I've got a problem. I've not got enough movement on this fence to actually close that gap up. But what I do have is 4 bolts underneath the table that, if loosened, will allow me to twist this tabletop ever so slightly. So I know that facing the machine, this back corner here wants to go in that direction, this back corner wants to come in this direction, so I have to twist like this. So I'm going to try, never tried it before, loosening those bolts off and just twisting this table a little bit. Get rid of the fence, get rid of the buddy, slacken off a little bit our 4 favourite bolts, not loosening them, just slackening them. Still want a bit of resistance on this, and now you can see I can just pivot this table like so. Now bring the fence back up, lock the fence down, and now I can pivot the table top, and that's just going to give me a coarse adjustment, which is going to be about there. Looks good. And now hopefully I can just get in to these back bolts. I'm just going to lock those down, put this out of the way, and just tighten up the back too. And again, locking these down pretty firm now, because this should never have to move again. Okay, bring it down and lock it into place. And I just want to check I've not moved anything. Good. And now I can bring them back in with my fence again. Back in with my buddy. And now I should have enough movement on the fence to fine tune this. Just eyeing down that fence. If anything, this end here near me is ever so slightly closer than that end, but I'm talking millimeters. So now I know I've got enough movement in this. Loosen that off. Don't take it out. And now I should, look at that, just be able to adjust that ever so slightly. So now at this point I'm not putting any strain on the fence. I'm using the adjustment that's on that end of the fence. I'm not forcing it. So that trick of recalibrating by moving and pivoting the tabletop has worked incredibly well. Incredibly well. And that's it. That is bang on. Tighten that down. Just check myself again. Yep, perfect. So that's it, everything is working pretty well. We've got the blade tension correctly, I've got the blade tracking where I want it to track, I've got this top set of blade guides in the right position and not interfering with the blade. I've got the back one set, I've got the same on the bottom. I've got the table squared in this direction and to the back as well. And I've got my fence perfectly squared to the table. Now the one thing I've not actually checked is the squareness of the fence to the table, and that's not too bad. It's pretty reasonably square. It is about 1,000mm out, but not enough to actually worry me in use. If I wanted to, and that was out big time, I could put shims underneath this rail here. It just bolts onto the bottom of the table. However, I'm not going to do that because it's near enough. So we're nearly ready to actually use this thing. Completely calibrated. I'm pretty confident it's going to work well and it's going to give me a nice cut. Just one or two more things to put on. I'm going to push it back against the wall and then we'll just put the dust pieces on it, and then I think that's about it. And we're good to go. We can now use this baby. So there you have it, the Axminster Craft AC2606B, unboxed, built, calibrated, ready for its maiden voyage. So at this stage it'll be churlish not to actually try and cut something with it, so let's see what we can do. This is the first time we've actually turned this machine on. Now we're pretty confident that we've calibrated everything well and it should work perfectly, but I'm just going to stand back a little bit when I first start it, just in case anything catches or spurts out or there's anything loose that we've forgotten about. I'm just going to run through my mental checklist. Did I tension the blade? Yes. Did I track the blade? Yes. Have I checked I'm clearing all my guards? Yes. Is my blade guard in position? Yes. Have I set and tightened up my guides? Yes. Top and bottom? Yes. And everything's level and all my air con is connected. So I think I'm in good shape. So let's turn it on and see whether it's noisy or it runs nice and smooth. Okay. What do you think of that? That's absolutely gorgeous, beautifully smooth, no noises, all tracking well. We'll get some air extraction on this thing and we'll cut that piece of cherry. There you go, the first cut on our newly calibrated bandsaw, and that's not bad. My technique is a bit rubbish, you can see I've wobbled away from the line, but the next job I'd use my planer jointer anyway, just to bring that down to level setting. Just coming with a hand plane, just clean up my edge, so now I've got a nice flat reference surface to work on. So we're going to try and rip this in half now, so I'll lift my guide so it's out of the way, 13-ish millimeters, and that should give me a cut that's more or less in the centre. Now for me, this is the big test. How well will it cope with this rip cut? And I think it's fair to say that that coped with that rip cut reasonably well. Look at that, for the first time ever in my workshop, a book matched set of something or other. Quite nice, look at that, how it's revealed that grain pattern. So there you go, the Axminster Craft AC2606B ready to go into production. In the final episode we'll look at the features of this, we'll do a final review, what's going well, what do I like, what don't I like. Yeah, and give our overall opinion. So I hope you're finding this useful. I will see you on the third and final show. See you soon.